Welcome to the world of science fiction stories, and don't forget to like, share and subscribe my channel. Enjoy the listening. Humanity's battleship leaves the Galactic Council in fear. Admiral Park stepped away from the communication screen, her heart racing despite her calm exterior. The message from Earth Command glowed briefly before vanishing. Project Leviathan authorized. Return immediately. She had hoped it wouldn't come to this, but the Council had left them no choice. The hallway outside her chamber buzzed with activity as representatives from hundreds of worlds moved between sessions. Most barely glanced at the human in their midst. Earth was new to the galactic stage, a curiosity at best, an annoyance at worst. Park watched a group of Araxians float by, their gas-filled bodies shimmering with colors that indicated their emotional state. They were discussing trade routes, unconcerned with the Freener threat. Their home systems were far from the conflict zone, safe, protected by distance and the false security of Council membership. Admiral Park, the voice came from behind her. She turned to find Counselor Taith approaching, her serpentine form moving with hypnotic grace across the polished floor. Counselor, Park acknowledged with a slight bow, the proper greeting for a senior Council member. I hope you understand the Council's position, Taith said, her vertical pupils narrowing. Humans are impulsive, quick to suggest military action when diplomacy remains an option. And how many more colonies must fall while diplomacy is attempted? Park asked. Taith's scales rippled in what Park had learned was amusement. The Vreer have existed for millennia. Their aggressive phases come and go. The Council has weathered such storms before. Not all storms are the same, Park replied. Indeed, Taith's tongue flicked out, tasting the air around Park. You're leaving. Park nodded. Earth requires my presence. A pity. I was beginning to enjoy our discussions. Taith leaned closer, her voice dropping. A word of advice, Admiral. The Council watches Earth closely. Development beyond your technology classification would be most unfortunate. Park kept her face neutral despite the implied threat. Earth respects Council regulations. See that it continues to do so. Taith glided away, leaving Park alone in the corridor. An hour later, Park boarded her transport vessel. From the viewport, she watched as the Council station grew smaller, its enormous ring structure housing the political center of galactic civilization for over 10,000 years. Her pilot, Lieutenant Men, broke the silence. They didn't listen. They never do, Park said. Set course for Earth, maximum speed. The journey took 3 days. Park spent most of it reviewing reports from Earth's secret observation posts along the outer rim. The Vreer were moving faster than even she had feared. 2 more settlements had fallen while the Council debated. When Earth finally appeared in the viewport, its blue-white surface wrapped in clouds, Park felt a rush of pride and determination. Humanity had survived its own violent history, unified its governments, and reached the stars only to find a galaxy that viewed them as children. The transport docked at Orbital Station 1. General Kim was waiting when the airlock opened. Welcome back, he said, his weathered face serious. Was it as bad as we expected? Worse, Park replied. They're completely blind to the threat. Kim nodded grimly. Then we proceed as planned. The Leviathan is ready for your inspection. They took a shuttle to Orbital Shipyard 7, located on the dark side of Earth's moon. The facility was hidden from both Earth and space observation, buried beneath the lunar surface with only small access points visible. As they descended through the main shaft, Kim explained, we've kept the project compartmentalized. Less than 200 people know about Leviathan's full capabilities. The shuttle emerged into an enormous underground cavern. Park's breath caught in her throat. The ESS Leviathan hung suspended in the center of the space, bathed in harsh white light. It was matte black, absorbing light rather than reflecting it. The design was unlike any ship in the Council fleets, no graceful curves or artistic flourishes, just pure functionality with an undeniable sense of power. "It's bigger than I expected," Park said as they approached. "Had to be," Kim replied, "to house the new drive system and weapons." They docked with the ship, entering through a side airlock. Inside, crews were making final preparations, moving with purpose through corridors lit with soft blue lighting. The Council explicitly forbade any species from developing beyond Class 3, Park noted as they walked. "This is at least Class 6. Class 7 actually," Kim corrected, "but only because we don't have a Class 8 designation yet." They reached the bridge, spacious by military standards with stations arranged in a semicircle around the central command position. A woman rose from the captain's chair as they entered. "Admiral Park, this is Commander Song, your executive officer," Kim said. Song saluted crisply. "Honor to meet you, Admiral. The Leviathan is nearly ready for departure." Park nodded, moving to the main display. "Show me the weapon systems." Song gestured, and the screen filled with schematics. Primary offensive capability comes from the focused particle cannons. They operate on a frequency the Freener shields can't block. Secondary systems include gravity pulse generators that can disable enemy vessels without destroying them. "And the defense grid?" Park asked. "Multi-layered energy absorption fields, point defense lasers, and emergency phase shifting if all else fails." Park studied the designs, impressed despite having followed the project from its inception. "Propulsion?" "The quantum fold drive is installed and tested," Song reported. "We can reach the outer rim in under 30 hours. "And the Council won't detect it," Kim answered. "The drive creates no conventional subspace wake. They'll have no idea how we got there so quickly." Park moved to the captain's chair, running her hand along its arm. "Crew status? 280 personnel, all volunteers, all best in their fields," Song said. "They understand the risks." The risks were substantial. If the Council discovered what Earth had built, the consequences would be severe. Humanity could face sanctions, isolation, or worse. "And if we do nothing," Park said quietly, "the Vreer will continue their expansion until they reach Earth. The Council won't act until it's too late." Kim placed a hand on her shoulder. "Which is why President Kong authorized the launch. Earth Defense Command is unanimous. The Leviathan deploys in 12 hours. Park nodded, decision made. "Commander Song, begin final preparations." "We launch as scheduled." As Kim departed to handle the political aspects of their plan, Park remained on the bridge, watching the crew work. Humanity had always risen to challenges, adapted to overcome them. The Galactic Council had misjudged them, dismissed them as primitive newcomers. Soon they would understand their mistake. The Leviathan would show the galaxy what humans were truly capable of, and perhaps save them all in the process. Admiral Park took one last look at Earth through the viewport as the Leviathan prepared to depart. The blue-green planet shone against the blackness of space, home to 8 billion humans who had no idea their fate might depend on this mission. "Final systems check complete," reported Lieutenant Han from the operations console. "All stations report ready." Park settled into the command chair. The bridge hummed with quiet efficiency as the crew performed their duties. Most had been training together for years in secret facilities beneath the lunar surface, preparing for this moment. "Commander Song, take us out," Park ordered. "Maintain stealth protocols until we clear the solar system." "Aye, Admiral." Song's fingers moved across her control panel, initiating departure sequence. The massive dock doors slid open overhead. Beyond them lay empty space and, eventually, the stars where the Wiener advanced through unsuspecting worlds. The Leviathan rose silently from its berth. Conventional engines pushed it clear of the dock, their blue glow the only sign of power. To any watchers, it would appear to be just another military vessel on patrol, larger than most perhaps, but not remarkable. That illusion would last only until they activated the quantum fold drive. We are clear of the dock, Song announced. All systems nominal. Park touched her communications panel. Earth Command, this is Leviathan. We are away. General Kim's voice came through clearly. Acknowledged, Leviathan. The President sends his regards. Good hunting. Estimated time to safe activation distance. Park asked. Lieutenant Han consulted his display. 30 minutes at current speed, Admiral. Park nodded. Maintain course. She used the time to review her crew. Each had been carefully selected not just for skill but for adaptability and creative thinking. Council species prized stability and tradition, admirable qualities for peaceful times but deadly weaknesses when facing an enemy like the Wiener. The tactical officer, Lieutenant Choi, was a war game champion with an almost supernatural ability to predict enemy movements. At navigation sat Ninba, whose mathematical mind could calculate trajectories faster than most computers. The engineering section was led by Commander Kong, whose innovations had made the quantum fold drive possible in the first place. They were humanity's best, brought together for a mission that might save the galaxy or start a war with the very council they hoped to protect. We've reached safe distance, Song reported. Ready to activate quantum fold drive. Park straightened in her chair. This is it. All sections secure for full transition. Throughout the ship, crew members braced themselves. No one knew exactly what the first full power activation would feel like. The tests had been promising but limited. Quantum fold drive activating in 3, 2, 1. Commander Song announced. For an instant, nothing seemed to happen. Then the stars outside the viewport stretched into lines. A strange pressure filled the bridge, not painful but disorienting, as if reality itself bent around them. Lieutenant Han gripped his console. Transit successful. We're accelerating beyond anything the sensors can measure. Park allowed herself a small smile. Status report. All systems functioning within parameters, Song replied, checking her displays. Estimated arrival at the Vreer conflict zone in 27 hours. Much faster than we calculated, Park noted. The drive is exceeding performance projections by 12%, explained Commander Kang's voice over the comm. It's beautiful, Admiral. The field geometry is perfect. Maintain course and speed, Park ordered. All personnel rotate through your rest cycles. We need everyone at peak condition when we arrive. As the ship hurtled through space in ways the Council had deemed impossible, Park retreated to her ready room. There, displayed on her private terminal, was the latest intelligence on the Wiener advance. 3 more worlds had fallen while the Council debated. Millions of lives lost or displaced. The Wiener showed no interest in negotiation, no mercy toward conquered populations. They simply took what they wanted and destroyed the rest. Park accessed a secured file containing the only known images of actual Wiener. The Council had classified them as extremely dangerous but had shared little else. The images showed massive armored forms with multiple limbs, their biology seemingly adapted for war. Some analysts believed they had been engineered for combat, perhaps by some ancient species that had long since disappeared. A soft chime announced Commander Song at the door. Enter, Park called. Song stepped inside, carrying a data tablet. Admiral, we've detected unusual communication patterns from a Council monitoring station near our trajectory. Park frowned. They can't possibly detect us in fold space. No, Song agreed, but they might have detected our departure. The quantum signature would have been brief but distinct. How long until word reaches the main council? Song considered. Given standard communication protocols, perhaps 40 hours. But if they consider it urgent enough to use priority channels, then they might know before we engage the Freener, Park finished. It changes nothing. We proceed as planned. Yes, Admiral. Song hesitated. The crew is asking what happens after we confront the Wiener if we succeed. Park leaned back in her chair. It was a question she had carefully avoided answering, even to herself. If we succeed, she said slowly, we force the Council to acknowledge that humanity has something valuable to offer, that our perspective matters. And if they see us only as a threat? Park's expression hardened. Then they'll learn that underestimating humanity is never wise. The journey continued without incident. Hours passed as the Leviathan traveled through fold space, the crew settling into the rhythm of their shifts. In the mess hall, off-duty personnel speculated about the coming battle. In engineering, Kang and his team monitored the revolutionary drive that made their mission possible. On the bridge, Park watched the tactical simulations run again and again. The Wiener had overwhelming numbers. The Council forces had superior technology but rigid, predictable tactics. The Leviathan would need to be something else entirely, unpredictable, aggressive, and precise. We're approaching exit coordinates, Song announced as Park returned to the bridge after a brief rest. Preparing to leave fold space. Battle stations, Park ordered. Red lighting bathed the bridge as crew members secured for combat. Weapons systems to stand by. Shields at maximum. The pressure returned as the quantum field collapsed around them. The stars snapped back to points of light. On the main view screen, a distant sun appeared, surrounded by the faint dots of planets. We've arrived at the Naren system, Han confirmed. Sensors detecting multiple energy signatures consistent with Re-Anar vessels. Park stood, looking at the tactical display where enemy ships were already being tagged and classified. Well, she said quietly, let's introduce ourselves. The Leviathan emerged from quantum fold space with all systems at combat readiness. The tactical display immediately lit up with dozens of enemy vessels surrounding Naren 4. The planet below showed thermal signatures of cities burning, while Council defense ships drifted as broken wrecks. Scan complete, reported Lieutenant Choi. 47 Wiener vessels detected. Most are concentrated around the primary settlement areas. 3 Council ships remain operational but heavily damaged. Admiral Park studied the display, her expression grim. And the civilian population? Evacuation appears to be in progress, Commander Song answered. Several thousand life signs detected moving toward emergency shelters in the northern mountains. Rear ground forces are pursuing. Park nodded. So we have 2 objectives, neutralize the Wiener fleet and protect the evacuees. She turned to communications. Any response to our arrival? The Vrikar are not responding to hails, said Ninba. However, we're receiving a transmission from a Council observation vessel in the outer system. Put it through. The view screen flickered to show the face of an alien Park recognized. Counselor Taith, her serpentine features rigid with shock. Admiral Park. What is Earth doing here? And what manner of vessel is that? Counselor, Park acknowledged. The ESS Leviathan has come to assist with the Vreer incursion you insisted wasn't a threat. Before Taith could respond, Lieutenant Choi called out, Admiral. 5 Renar ships breaking from the main group. They're on an intercept course. Counselor, we'll continue this discussion later, Park said, cutting the connection. She turned to her crew. They're curious about us. Let's show them who they're dealing with. The approaching Wiener vessels were massive, jagged constructions that resembled floating fortresses more than ships. Their weapons charged, preparing to fire on the lone human vessel. Evasive pattern Delta, Park ordered calmly. Bring us within optimum range of the lead ship, but maintain distance from the others. Commander Song relayed the orders. The Leviathan responded instantly, its maneuvering thrusters firing with precision. The ship moved like nothing ever seen in Council space, quick, agile, almost impossible to track. The Wiener fired. Brilliant energy beams lanced through space where the Leviathan had been a moment before. "They've missed," reported Lieutenant Hahn. "Their targeting systems can't compensate for our speed." "Now we show them what we can do," Park said. "Target their lead vessel's propulsion system with focused particle cannons. Minimal power. We want to disable, not destroy." Lieutenant Choi's fingers danced across his console. Target locked. Fire. A barely visible beam lanced from the Leviathan. Where it struck the Wiener ship, shields flared and failed. The vessel's engines went dark, and it began to drift. "Direct hit," Choi confirmed. "Their shields couldn't handle the frequency shift. Their engines are offline. The remaining ships are changing formation," Song reported. "They appear to be retreating." Park shook her head. "No, they're regrouping. They've never encountered a weapon that could penetrate their shields so easily." She stood from her chair. "Now we press the advantage. Bring us toward the main fleet. Target their command vessel." On the Council observation ship, the representatives watched in stunned silence as the lone human vessel moved against the Wiener fleet. "One ship?" Councillor Drav repeated, his mandibles clicking rapidly in agitation. "How can one ship challenge a war fleet that destroyed our entire defense squadron?" Councillor Taith didn't answer. Her eyes were fixed on the displays showing the Leviathan's movements. The ship danced through space, evading Wiener fire while landing precision strikes against key systems. "Their technology is far beyond Class 3, she finally said. "The humans have violated Council law." "And yet," replied an aquatic representative, his voice bubbling through his translator, "they may save Naren for when we could not." Back on the Leviathan, the bridge hummed with focused energy as the crew executed their attack plan. "Vreer command vessel identified," Choi announced. "It's the largest ship in their formation, that dreadnought with the forward prongs." Park studied it on the tactical display. "That's our primary target, but first we need to clear a path. Lieutenant Hahn, plot a course that takes us through their defensive screen." "That's dangerously close to their weapons range," Hahn cautioned. "They won't be able to track us," Park replied confidently. "Execute Pattern Theta." Pattern Theta was a combat maneuver developed specifically for the Leviathan, a series of rapid position changes combined with short-range quantum jumps that made the ship virtually impossible to target. The Leviathan accelerated toward the Wiener fleet as enemy weapons fire filled space around them. The ship blinked in and out of position, appearing briefly before jumping again. "Quantum jump systems performing perfectly," reported Commander Kong from engineering. "We can maintain this pattern for 7 minutes before needing to recalibrate." "That's all we need," Park said. "Lieutenant Choi, target the command ship's weapons arrays and communication systems." The Leviathan continued its dance through enemy fire, each appearance bringing it closer to the massive Renar command ship. When it finally reached optimal range, Park gave the order. "Fire all particle cannons, maximum precision." The ship's weapons discharged in perfect sequence, each beam striking with surgical precision, disabling the command vessel's primary systems without destroying the ship itself. "Direct hits on all targets," Choi reported. "Their weapons are offline, communications disabled. The vessel remains intact." Park nodded in satisfaction. "Now for Phase 2. Lieutenant Hahn, bring us into position over the evacuation routes. Commander Song, prepare the gravity pulse generators." The Leviathan broke away from the command ship and accelerated toward the planet's surface. Below, Vreer ground forces were closing in on the civilian evacuation. "Gravity pulse generators ready," Song reported. "Target the Vreer ground forces," Park ordered. "Careful calibration. We don't want to affect the civilians." The Leviathan's most revolutionary weapon activated. Invisible waves of gravitational force swept over the precise coordinates where Freener troops advanced. The aliens found themselves suddenly weighing 10 times normal, pinned to the ground and unable to move. Ground forces neutralized, Choi confirmed. Evacuation routes are clear. Park allowed herself a small smile. Now back to their fleet. Let's show them what happens when they attack innocent worlds. For the next hour, the Leviathan systematically disabled the Freener fleet. Ship after ship lost propulsion, weapons, or shields to the precise strikes of the human vessel. Throughout the battle, Park gave the same orders repeatedly: disable, don't destroy. On the Council observation vessel, the representatives watched in astonishment. They could destroy the entire fleet, noted Drav. Yet they choose not to, Taith replied, her voice thoughtful. They're showing mercy, even to the Wiener. Or perhaps, suggested another council member, they're showing us something else entirely. 2 hours after the Leviathan's arrival, the last operational Wiener vessels broke formation and fled the system, abandoning their disabled companions. Admiral Park stood on her bridge, surveying the results on the tactical display. Status report. 32 Vrikar vessels disabled, reported Choi. 15 retreated. No complete destructions. Civilian evacuation proceeding safely. Council forces requesting permission to approach. Park nodded. Granted. And open a channel to Councillor Taith. When the serpentine alien appeared on screen, her expression was unreadable. Admiral Park, it seems Earth has much to explain to the Council. Yes, Park agreed, and the Council has much to learn from Earth. We'll meet you at the station in 3 days. As the communication ended, Commander Song approached. Admiral, Council protocols demand we surrender our ship for inspection. Park's gaze remained on the view screen, where the wounded planet slowly turned below them. The Council's protocols nearly cost these people their lives. It's time for new protocols. She turned to her crew. Set course for the nearest Council station. Let's go show them the future. The Council chamber erupted in voices as soon as Admiral Park entered. The circular room, designed to amplify sound for species with poor hearing, now echoed with angry shouts and fearful demands. Representatives from hundreds of worlds gestured with tentacles, claws, hands, and appendages that defied easy description. Park wore her formal Earth uniform, navy blue with silver trim, the emblem of humanity displayed prominently on her chest. She stood straight-backed as she walked to the center of the chamber, Commander Song following 2 steps behind. Order, called the moderator, its gelatinous body pulsing with bright colors. The Council will have order. Gradually, the noise subsided. Park could feel the eyes of the galaxy upon her, some curious, some admiring, but many filled with suspicion or outright hostility. High Councillor Drav stomped forward, his insectoid legs clicking against the polished floor. The humans have deceived this council. They claimed technological compliance while secretly building weapons of unprecedented power. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. Drav continued, mandibles clacking for emphasis. The Leviathan violates 17 different treaty provisions. Its quantum fold drive alone breaks fundamental agreements on propulsion technology. Park remained silent. The Earth strategy had been clear: let the Council exhaust its outrage before responding. Councillor Taith uncoiled from her platform, her serpentine body stretching to full height. While I share concerns about treaty violations, we cannot ignore results. The human vessel single-handedly defeated a Renar fleet that destroyed our finest ships. At what cost? Demanded a representative from the Mechanoid Alliance, his voice buzzing through metallic speakers. If we allow one species to ignore limitations, the carefully maintained balance of power collapses. The debate continued for hours. Park stood motionless, watching the familiar political dance unfold. Species that had been enemies for millennia found themselves unlikely allies in opposition to Earth. Others who had never agreed on anything suddenly discovered common ground in supporting the humans. Finally, the moderator's body flashed a brilliant white, the signal for silence. Admiral Park, Earth must answer these charges. What defense do you offer for these violations? Park stepped forward. The chamber grew utterly quiet. The council speaks of balance, she began, her voice clear and measured, yet this balance has become stagnation. For 10,000 years, technological advancement has been carefully controlled, not to prevent destruction but to maintain the status quo. She gestured toward the great map that dominated one wall, showing the territories of all council members. While you debated, the Wiener destroyed 3 worlds. While you formed committees, they enslaved billions. Earth saw a threat the council refused to acknowledge. So you took matters into your own hands? Drav challenged. We did what we had to do, Park replied simply. The Leviathan represents not just human ingenuity but human perspective. We are new to the stars. We see with fresh eyes what you have grown blind to through familiarity. A representative from the crystalline collective chimed in, her voice ringing like bells. The human makes valid points. Perhaps our protocols have become overly cautious. Caution has preserved peace for millennia, countered Drav. Park shook her head. Peace for the established powers, perhaps. Ask the refugees of Naren 4 if they felt this peace. The debate seemed ready to ignite again when a side door burst open. The communications officer, a small multi-armed being whose species specialized in information transfer, rushed into the chamber.